My husband punched me in the hospital room, but the security footage took him straight to prison. Please stay with me as I tell my story. And please, do not forget to support our channel by subscribing to our channel, liking our videos, and sharing your loved ones. Your support means the world to us. Now to our story. Poke. I thought giving birth would be the hardest part of my day. The pain, the fear, the uncertainty, it all felt overwhelming. But I got through it. I held my newborn daughter in my arms and felt like I could survive anything. But I was wrong. It wasn't the labor that broke me. It was what happened after. I was lying in the hospital bed, exhausted, sore, still trying to wrap my head around the fact that I was a mother. My husband stood near the window, staring at his phone. Something about his silence felt heavy, like a storm building. When I asked him if he was okay, he snapped. Not loudly, just cold, sharp words that cut deeper than I expected. He said I ruined everything, said the baby wasn't even his, that I had embarrassed him. My heart pounded. I was too tired to argue, too confused to understand. I told him he was being cruel, that we could talk about this later. But he didn't want to talk. He stepped closer. His jaw was tight, eyes wild. I felt the air shift. And then he hit me. One hard, sudden punch to the side of my face. I didn't even scream. My breath caught in my throat. The pain came after the shock, and by then, he was already yelling. The baby started crying. I remember the heart monitor beeping faster. I remember the nurse rushing in, followed by another. They didn't see the hit, just the aftermath. My bleeding lip, the bruise already forming. He tried to say I was confused, that I had fallen, that I was emotional and tired. I wanted to scream the truth, but I didn't have the strength. I looked at the nurses, hoping they could see the fear in my eyes. Later, while I was being examined, a kind nurse came close and whispered something I'll never forget. There's a security camera in the corner of the room. It sees everything. Everything. I didn't even know it was there. But now it was the only proof I had. The camera had captured the exact moment he crossed the line. The moment he turned from husband to abuser. I lay there, silently praying that the footage was clear. That justice would find him. Because that punch wasn't just an attack. It was a betrayal so deep, it changed everything. And he had no idea that the truth had already been recorded. We met at a friend's party. He was charming, funny, and confident. He made me feel seen. I was shy, unsure of myself, but around him, I felt special. He said all the right things, told me I was different. I believed him. In the beginning, everything seemed perfect. He brought me flowers, texted me good morning and good night. We went on dates, laughed a lot. My friends said he seemed intense, maybe a bit too much. But I told them they were just being overprotective. Then little things started to change. He didn't like how I dressed. Said certain clothes made me look cheap. I started wearing what he liked. He told me one of my friends flirted with him, asked why I'd be friends with someone like that. I cut her off. Slowly, the circle around me grew smaller. He didn't want me working late. Said he missed me too much. Then he said I didn't need to work at all. That he'd take care of everything. At first, it felt like love. Like he wanted to protect me. But over time, it felt like I was being caged. I had no money of my own. He gave me an allowance, like a child. And when I asked for more, he said I was being ungrateful. He had a way of twisting things. If I cried, he called me dramatic. If I got upset, he said I was too sensitive. When I questioned something, he'd say I imagined it. It made me doubt my own mind. I stopped bringing things up. I just tried to keep the peace. By the time I got pregnant, I barely recognized myself. I thought a baby would bring us closer. That maybe he'd change. But things got worse. He got colder. He'd disappear for hours and refuse to say where he was. When I cried, he'd call me crazy. My family tried to talk to me. My mom cried and said I looked tired all the time. My sister asked if I was really happy. I lied. I said I was fine. I didn't want to admit the truth. I thought love meant standing by someone, even when it hurt. There were moments, small ones, where he'd grab my arm too hard, where he'd yell close to my face. I told myself it wasn't abuse, that he never really hit me. Not until that day. What happened in the hospital wasn't the start. It was just the first time there. Was proof. The nurses came running in right after it happened. One of them gasped. Another froze. My husband stepped back, his hands up like he hadn't done anything. The baby was crying. I couldn't move. I felt the sting on my cheek, but it was nothing compared to the weight inside my chest. They asked what happened. I couldn't speak. I was scared. Not just of him, but of what would come next. Would they believe me? Would they call the police? Or would they believe him when he said I was confused? One nurse tried to help me sit up. Another checked the monitors. My husband kept talking. Calm, smooth, like nothing had happened. He said I was overwhelmed. That I lashed out. That I hit myself by accident during a panic. I looked at their faces. They didn't say much. But their eyes said everything. After they left, the room went quiet. He stayed near the door, watching me. I turned away and held my baby close. He said he was sorry, but only once. Then he started blaming me again. softly this time. Said I needed help. Said I made things hard for him. I didn't answer. I just stared out the window. That night, I used my phone to record him. I kept it hidden under the pillow. He ranted about how I should have kept my mouth shut, and how I always made him look bad. His voice was low but full of venom. I saved every word. The nurses avoided eye contact the next day. Some looked at me, then quickly turned away. Others whispered in the hallway. I felt like a ghost in that room. No one said what they were thinking, but I knew. I could feel their silence pressing down on me. I asked for pain medicine. They gave it to me without asking many questions. I was scared to sleep, scared he'd do something worse. I stayed up, staring at the ceiling, holding my baby close like she was the only safe thing in the world. Late the next afternoon, while he was out of the room, a nurse came in alone. She checked my vitals and barely spoke. Then she looked over her shoulder, like she was making sure we were alone. She handed me a folded piece of paper, small enough to fit in my palm. I opened it slowly. It said only one thing. Security has everything on tape. They discharged me 2 days later. My husband was there, carrying our bags, acting like nothing had happened. He smiled at the nurses, thanked the doctor, held the baby like a proud father. I stayed quiet. I kept my face calm, but inside, everything was changing. I didn't argue. I didn't ask questions. I just waited. Once we were home, I told him I needed rest, that I wasn't ready to talk. He liked that. It gave him control again. But what he didn't know was that I had already made a plan. The next morning, I called the hospital from the bathroom. I asked to speak with someone from security. It took some convincing, but eventually they put me through to a man named Peter. I didn't say much, just told him my name and asked if he saw the footage. He said yes. His voice was soft, careful. He told me it was all there, clear as day. The angle, the timestamp, the audio, everything. He didn't say more, but I could hear it in his tone. He believed me. He said he'd save a copy of the footage, that I could request it through the proper channels. I thanked him. I didn't cry. I felt steady, like I had grabbed onto something solid after drifting too long. Later that day, I called a lawyer. I didn't tell anyone. I found a small firm that worked with women in abusive situations. The woman on the phone was kind and calm. She gave me instructions, what to file, what documents I'd need, how to protect myself. I listened carefully and wrote everything down. By the end of the week, I had filed a police report. Quietly, I brought the recording from my phone and requested the hospital footage officially. The officer I spoke to didn't question me much. He watched the clip on my phone, then nodded and said someone would follow up. I signed the paperwork for divorce the next morning. I had the papers mailed to a P.O. box, not the house. I didn't want anything coming near where I slept. Each step felt like moving through fog, but I kept going. I made a list of what I needed to take if I had to leave fast. I started hiding cash. I backed up every recording to an encrypted drive. I changed password. I checked locks. I said nothing to him. I let him believe he was in control. But I was already gathering my proof, one quiet move at a time. The days that followed were quiet. I acted normal. I cooked, cleaned, fed the baby. He didn't notice anything. If he asked how I was feeling, I gave short answers. He thought I was healing, moving on. He had no idea what was coming. I kept my phone close. Every time it buzzed, my heart jumped. The detective said they were reviewing everything, the hospital footage, my recordings, the report. I didn't ask for updates. I didn't want to risk him overhearing something. At night, I barely slept. I kept one ear open just in case. I made sure my bag was packed and hidden in the closet. It had copies of the footage, legal papers, a small amount of cash, and baby supplies. I didn't know how it would all unfold, but I knew I had to be ready. Then one morning, it happened. He was sitting at the table, eating eggs and scrolling on his phone. I was standing near the sink, rocking the baby. It felt like a normal day. The sunlight was coming in through the kitchen window. The radio played softly in the background. Then we heard the knock, 3 sharp bangs at the door. He looked up, confused. I froze. Before he could stand, the door opened. 4 police officers stepped in. Their voices were firm, calm but direct. His name, you are under arrest. He started to speak, but they didn't give him time. One officer pulled his hands behind his back. Another read him his rights. I saw his face twist from surprise to anger, then fear. What is this? What's going on? The officer looked him straight in the eye and said, "We have the footage." His mouth opened, then closed. He turned to look at me. I didn't move. I held our daughter close and stared back. I didn't feel anything in that moment. No joy, no anger. Just silence. They walked him out in handcuffs. I didn't follow. I didn't say a word. The baby was still in my arms, calm now, like she understood something had changed. After they left, I sat down at the table. His plate was still there. The fork half raised, like time had paused mid-bite. I picked it up and placed it in the sink. It was over. Not everything. Not yet. But that part, the silence, the pretending, the fear, was done. And for the first time in a long time, I felt something real. I felt free. The courtroom was quiet when I walked in. My lawyer stood beside me, calm and focused. I held my breath as I sat down. Across the room, he sat with his lawyer, confident and collected, like nothing had happened. When the trial started, he told the court I was unstable, that I had made everything up. He said I was angry, that I wanted to ruin his life. His voice was steady, but his hands were tight in his lap. He talked like he was the victim. I didn't look at him. I kept my eyes on the judge. I answered every question clearly. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't cry. Then came the moment we had planned for. My lawyer stood up and said, "We have evidence." He handed over the footage. The video played on the screen in the courtroom. The room went completely silent. You could hear every sound, the baby crying, his voice, the hit. You could see it all, clear and sharp. Time-stamped. No way to deny it. Someone in the back gasped. A few jurors looked down. Others looked at him. He turned red. His lawyer tried to object, but the judge waved him off. After the video, nurses from the hospital testified. They spoke calmly. One described what she saw. Another confirmed the room had a working security camera. Every word added weight to the truth. He didn't speak again after that. He sat frozen, his eyes darting around, like he was looking for a way out. I kept my hands folded in my lap. My chest felt tight, but I stayed steady. The judge looked at both sides. He didn't need long. He picked up his papers and read the verdict out loud. Guilty. The word rang through the room. The gavel came down hard. The sentence was set. Prison time. I didn't smile. I didn't cry. I just breathed. He was led away in handcuffs again, but this time it wasn't sudden. It was slow, heavy. He didn't look back at me. Outside the courtroom, my lawyer shook my hand. "You did everything right," she said. I nodded. I didn't know what to say. It wasn't just about winning. It was about being heard, being believed. He had tried to lie. Tried to twist the truth like he always did. But the truth won. And now, finally, I could start again. A week after the trial, the news broke. I didn't expect it. I thought it would stay quiet. But someone in the courtroom had shared the story, and it spread fast. Within a day, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. The headline was everywhere. New mom abused in hospital, security footage sends husband to prison. At first, I was scared. I didn't want my name in the news. I didn't want people pointing or whispering. But as I read the comments, something changed. People weren't judging me. They were supporting me. Strangers messaged me, saying they were proud of me. Women shared their own stories. Some said they finally had hope. Others said they were going to leave their abusive partners after reading about what I did. It felt strange, but also powerful. My family, who had grown distant over the years, reached out. My sister called crying, saying she wished she'd done more. My mom came over and held the baby for hours, telling me I was the strongest person she knew. My dad apologized for not seeing the signs. I didn't blame them. I had hidden the truth well. But now it was all out in the open. A local women's center contacted me and asked if I'd speak at one of their events. I almost said no. I didn't think I was ready. But something inside me said yes. That night, I stood in front of a room full of survivors. I told them what happened. Not the headlines, the real story. The small steps. The fear. The silence. The fight to be believed. When I finished, people stood and clapped. A few came up to hug me. One woman whispered, "Because of you, I know I can leave too." That moment changed everything. I started working with shelters and support groups. I helped create a program that teaches women how to safely document abuse. I spoke to law students about how to handle sensitive cases. I joined panels, podcasts, and slowly became a voice in the space. I didn't do it for fame. I did it because I never wanted another woman to feel alone like I did. Turning pain into something useful didn't take the hurt away, but it gave it meaning. It helped me heal. People still recognize me sometimes. They say, "You're that woman from the hospital story." And I nod, not with shame, but with strength. Because yes, I am. But I'm also more than that. I survived. Therapy wasn't easy. At first, I didn't know what to say. I would sit on the couch and stare at the floor. My therapist never rushed me. She just waited. Over time, the words started to come out. Not all at once, just little pieces. I talked about the fear, the silence, the guilt. I talked about the baby. I talked about him. Some days I cried. Some days I felt numb. But every session, something inside me softened. I started feeling like I could breathe again. She gave me an exercise to write letters. The first one was to the old me, the girl who thought love meant staying quiet. I told her she did her best, that she didn't fail, that it wasn't her fault. The second letter was for my daughter. I told her she was born into chaos, but she saved me. I promised to protect her, to teach her what love should really feel like. I told her she was my light in the darkest room. The last letter was to the woman I am now. I told her she is strong, brave, that she made it through something that once felt impossible. I told her to be proud of herself. Writing those words made it real. I started trusting myself more. I made small decisions without second-guessing everything. I looked people in the eye again. I even laughed without guilt. One night, while the baby was asleep, I opened an old folder on my computer. It was full of videos. Vacation clips, dinners, birthdays. At the bottom, I saw our wedding video. I clicked on it. For a minute, I just watched. I saw myself smiling, saying vows, holding his hands. I looked so happy. But I knew the truth now. I didn't watch the whole thing. I closed the player and hovered over the delete button. I took a breath and clicked. It was gone. Then I opened another file. It was a short video, just a minute long. My daughter's first laugh. I had recorded it on my phone one quiet afternoon. Her little giggles filled the room. I pressed play. As the sound filled the air, I smiled. Real deep honest. I saved that video in a new folder. I named it Day 1, because that's what it felt like. A new beginning. And for the first time in a long while, I felt at peace. A full year passed. I lived in a quiet apartment not far from a park. It wasn't big, but it was safe. I had painted the baby's room a soft yellow. Every morning, sunlight filled the space. It felt warm, peaceful. I found a job at a small office. The hours worked with daycare, and the people were kind. I didn't tell them much about my past. I just showed up, worked hard, and slowly built something steady. My daughter was growing fast. She had her first birthday surrounded by people who loved her. My sister baked the cake. My mom brought balloons. We all laughed. It was the kind of joy I never thought I'd feel again. I had friends now. Real ones. Women I met through support groups. Some were still healing. Others had found their strength. We checked in on each other. We shared advice, late-night texts, and sometimes just silence when words were too much. One day, I got a call from a local women's shelter. They were holding a public event for Domestic Violence Awareness Month. They asked if I would speak. I hesitated. It felt big. Too open. But then I remembered how lost I had once felt, how hearing someone else's story gave me courage. So I said yes. The day of the event, I stood behind a podium with lights shining on my face. The room was full of survivors, supporters, and strangers. My palms were sweaty. My heart raced. But I looked out at the crowd and remembered why I was there. I took a deep breath and began. He broke me in that room. But that punch woke something up in me he never expected: survival. The room went still. I kept talking. I told them about fear. About silence. About finding proof, holding on, and walking away. I told them about rebuilding, about therapy, about small victories. I shared how my daughter's laugh became my new beginning. When I finished, people stood up. Some cried. Some just nodded. A young woman came up afterward and said, "I think I'm where you used to be." I looked her in the eyes and said, "Then I know you can get here too." That night, I walked home holding my daughter close. We passed under streetlights, her small hand wrapped around my finger. This was my life now. Not perfect, not easy, but mine. The letter came on a quiet Tuesday morning. It was in a plain envelope with no return address, but I knew the handwriting. My hands didn't shake when I opened it. I had prepared myself for this. It started with my name. No dear, just plain and cold. He wrote about prison, about how time had changed him. He said he was sorry, that he thought about me and our daughter every day, that he was a different man now. He said he found faith, found peace, and wanted to make things right. He asked for forgiveness. He said he hoped I would write back, that maybe one day we could talk. He asked for a photo of the baby, said he missed her laugh. I read every word. I didn't rush. I wanted to see what kind of man he pretended to be now. The one who claimed to have learned. The one who used words like mistake and regret instead of the truth. There was no mention of what he did. No real name for it. Just soft words, shaped to sound gentle. When I finished reading, I folded the letter once. Then again. I stood up, walked to the kitchen, and lit a match. I watched the flame catch the edge of the paper. It curled, blackened, and dropped ash into the sink. I didn't stop it. I didn't flinch. When it was all gone, I turned on the tap and let the ashes wash away. Later that day, I took my daughter to the park. The sun was out. She ran ahead, laughing, her hair bouncing as she moved. I sat on a bench and smiled. There was no weight on my shoulders. No fear, no doubt. Just wind, sunlight, and the sound of her joy. He was behind bars, but I had been freed long before he ever went to prison. The truth had already set me free. He thought he had broken me, thought I would live in fear, thought I would stay silent forever. But what he never saw coming was the camera. The one thing he couldn't lie to, couldn't charm, couldn't twist. That tiny lens told my story better than words ever could. I looked at my daughter chasing butterflies, and I felt nothing but peace. He thought I'd be his victim forever. Turns out, I was just waiting for the camera to start rolling.